So what's up, dude? I'm just gonna jump on here briefly, and when someone had asked me in a message, you know, hey, I see your Jim Root number 4. How come you ever fucking play it? And so, you know what? I made a video a long time ago, and I just didn't like how the sound quality came out, so I never put it on. And so I've had his Jim Root since probably like February or April or maybe March, and I just never made a video with it. And definitely love the amp, big time. I almost got the Dark Terror instead of the Jim Root, but I really wanted to have a mid, because, you know, so many times you buy pedals, you buy amps, you buy, you know, all kinds of stuff these days, right? And it always comes down to where are the mids at in the pedal. The low mids and the high mids and the mid mids, right? Like, that defines everything. If you like the way the pedal sounds, it's probably because you like that mid sweep. And a lot of amps, really, if they just have a tone knob, it's really hard to get what you want and how you want it to sound. So for me, at least, you know, I really have to have a dedicated tone stack. And so with these active tone controls here that Mr. Jim Root has on his amp, they really make it usable. I will say one thing though, you know, I'm in 7-watt mode running through the ISO cab, and you know, no pedals in front of the amp. The only thing that's on the amp right now is in the effects loop, which is the Alter Ego and the Big Sky. So yeah, this amp is not modified, it's stock. And so that's why I really wanted like a micro dark amp whenever, you know, before Orange had made it. And now that they have it, I put a more toned down preamp tube in there, and it basically mimics this amp with what you just heard, which is a nice kind of gained up, you know, kind of a little bit gritty of a clean tone. Neck pickup. I really love that. I mean, that's like to die for. And if you just throw like an EP booster in front of that, or a soul food or something on top of that, or it just really lights up. And that's what's really cool about the orange Jim Root, right, is that you can do this. And it really is a really good amp for this. Yeah, it does it well. Let's see if I can find like a cloud preset here. I think it's like Bank. Let's see, where's it at? Boiler or Silo. Stratus, there we go. So yeah, you know, if the question was ever brought, you know, does the amp clean up? Yes, absolutely it does. But it also goes, you know, it also fucking goes balls to the walls pretty well. got it all in there, man. It's fucking amazing for an amp. Yeah, you know, maybe next weekend when I get a chance, I'll do a full featured video on this and just kind of show you what some pedals sound like, because it takes pedals pretty well. You know, right off the bat, I picked up the, I switched from using this amp full time to using the Peavey 6505. So the 6505 essentially replaced this amp for me. Immediately, one of the things I noticed is that the high-end aspect of the Peavey 6505 was a little bit more usable, whereas the highs on the orange were a little bit more, you know, squishy and juicy and just a little bit too fizzy and, you know, a little bit too carbonated. But after listening to it right now, it doesn't sound too bad. You know, maybe I should run them in tandem. It's not bad at all. And that's the thing, you know, with the Peavey, the best amp in the world, the only problem is it's a channel amp. And when you change channels, sometimes it feels like your tone goes from here in your face to like further back when you change channels to more gain. Then you go to that third channel and it seems even further back. I don't know how to describe it. That's what I like about the orange, is how it's a simple circuit, right? Just from here to there. And that's all there is to it. And you just fuck with the knobs or put a pedal in front of it, and that's what you do. You know, honestly, if I was Peavey, I would ask Peavey to make a 6501, right? And by that, I mean a one-channel 6505. So this knob and like this knob, you know, just like two random knobs, they do everything that the channel switching does without changing the channel. So it just puts more gain in. That would be really cool. So like a single-channel 6505 amp. Because single channel amps are the fucking shit. They are amazing. If you know how to use your guitar, you don't need, you know, pedals for... Yeah, it's all there, right? Yeah, so really cool amp, and well worth, I think the $600 I paid for it, or maybe the $500 I paid for it. Great amp to have in your repertoire. You know, a good Marshall, a good Peavey, and then a fucking orange. That's pretty much all you really need. You know, there's a lot of amp companies out there these days, and a couple of Fenders, you know, to handle, you know, the quiet stuff, right? You know, if there's one more amp I would like to get, it'd probably be a Vox, the AC10. I would probably like to get that my hands on that AC10 really bad. But, you know, I'm really into heads these days because I have the isolation cab, so I don't need like a combo. So it'd be really cool to have like an AC10 head, you know? I don't need your speaker Vox. I don't need your Celestians, you know? I already have my speaker set up. I just need the head. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that. yeah, that's this amp. Pretty badass amp. Like I said, next week when I get a chance, not this weekend, but next weekend, I'll spend some quality time with you in this amp and take you through a rundown. And like I said, this amp's a badass amp to have. A really badass amp to have. I mean, this a fucking Marshall and a Peavey 6505 are really all you need for all your gain. You know, you blend those three amps together and you're going to get everything you need. A Marshall, an Orange, and a Peavey 6505. It's really all you need. And then Fenders for your clean tones. But like I said, you know, the 6505, the Marshall, and the Orange all have fabulous clean tones and then fabulous, like, crunchy, bluesy grit tones. You know, that's the really cool thing about, like, the Class 5, the Marshall Class 5 amp. Again, a one-channel amp, you know. Just use your controls on board. It's just like a fucking Gibson Junior, you know, which is two controls. All you have is a tone and a volume. When you learn how to use your controls very well, you can get some great tone. And then, you know, if that doesn't work for you, you can always throw a pedal in front of it. So, yeah, like I said, I'll come back later on and I'll show you more about this amp because there's a lot more to be seen and more to be heard. And one thing I will say, the silent but deadly aspect about this amp that makes it fucking badass is just like the Orange Micro Dark, is the effects loop is choice. You know what I mean? The effects loop is tits. It's badass. And, you know, what you play through there doesn't get garbled or any of that stuff. It doesn't sound like it's undertoned. It sounds like it's right where it needs to be. It's dialed in perfect. And the same goes for like the Peavey 6505. The effects loop is badass. And cool thing about the Orange is 15 watts to 7 watts, right? And then, of course, very simple circuit. You know, you get gain, volume, you know, treble, mid, and bass, and that's it. Yeah, the only thing I would have changed on that amp is I would have put a headphone out, and that's, you know, that's kind of going far. You know, the 6505 was recently made for 2015 with a headphone and the microphone and all that stuff on it, right? And the Orange is a little bit older, like a couple-year older amp, and for being a lunchbox, for being small, and for being totally fucking badass, it's a really great amp. So, yeah, don't ever be afraid to buy something like this, even if you can't listen to it, because that's what I did. I wasn't able to listen to this amp. I listened to the real Dark Terror, the Orange Dark Terror, the big one, and I fucking loved that amp, and I was like, wow. But the only thing is, I really couldn't get a good, you know, like Fendery, blues breakery kind of tone out of the amp. It kind of seemed one-dimensional. And so I just went ahead and bought the Orange Jim Root because I was like, you know what? The rock reverb tone circuit, I've heard that before on a rock reverb amp. I knew that, you know, a rock reverb tone circuit toned down a little bit on the Dark Terror would be like a perfect amp, and sure enough it was. So I bought this without even hearing it, like, in ear, and I'm not even dissatisfied, not even one bit. I'm not even like disappointed even one bit. This is a great amp, and the only reason why I run a 6505 all day long is because it's newer, right, and a little bit more refined. And for me, growing up in the 90s, a lot of that stuff was Peavey or Boogie, you know. A lot of that stuff was Peavey back when I was a kid, and the 6505, you know, that tone to me is an iconic tone as much as a Fender or a Marshall tone is. And I'm not saying that the Orange isn't, but, you know, I feel instantly like in my best pair of shoes whenever I jump on a 6505, the micro head, that is. Like, I feel like that's the best thing in the world. So I'm going to wrap this up. It's 20.